We're back!
Finally!
All right. So we took a little bit of a pause over the last couple of weeks as we've been traveling and...
We?
Okay, so I've been traveling and getting my fun on.
I don't know if it was a lot of fun. It was still work.
It was work, but it was fun as well. But it definitely made us, we had no time to actually connect. It was very hard.
It was like, what are we doing? When are we doing? When are we meeting?
What time is it? Because we were in different time zones. Yeah, that was stressful to say the least. But we're back. We now are reconnected. We've gotten time to get ourselves summer ready. Because as we know, it's the summer of us, the summer of Golden Girls.
Golden Girls, oh my God. I don't know about me for the summer, but yeah, speaking about Golden Girls, with our next guest, we really felt like we were James Lipton. Do you remember who James Lipton was?
Of course.
Yeah.
Mr. Inside the Actor's Studio.
Exactly.
How could you not know him?
Google.
Well,
we really felt that because this time, you know how every time we have new kind of different jobs, different position, different industry, and our next guests are actually actors. To be or not to be?
That is the question. That is the question.
So, it's always interesting that, you're going to have besties, friends, not besties. I haven't said that for a while.
People are missing it. You gotta bring it back.
So work besties in every industry, including, I think, a very difficult industry, which is theater, movie actors. So let's listen.
Work Besties!
Well, hi everybody. We are very excited today to have two great people, Lindsay and Maria. So they are actually in another industry than we've been talking in the past. They are actually artists, and specifically, I believe, in theaters. So Lindsay and Maria would love to hear from you. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Timington. I am a playwright and a professor kind of by trade right now. But once upon a time, I was an actor. I went to school. I got my MFA in acting and playwriting. And acting is how I met Maria.
I'm Maria, and I am also an actor and a teacher up here. And I was a bartender for a long time in New York, primarily a bartender, a little bit of acting, a lot of bartending. And I met Lindsay doing a show and have been lucky enough to be in one of her plays.
Great. So, tell us about what was that play and really what was your first impression of each other?
I was trying to remember, Maria, was it 2015 or 2014?
I think, yes, I was trying to remember too. I believe it was 2015.
Yeah. 2015 is a big blur for a lot of reasons. From that, I moved in 2013, and I moved as a result, it was a very spontaneous decision as a result of a divorce. So I moved from Hawaii to New York in 2013. So those couple of years are a little bit blurry as I was finding my way in the city. But Maria and I, confirmed 2015, right, Maria?
Yes.
We were cast in a show in Brooklyn, and it was a 2-person show. And I was petrified. At that point in time, I was starting to get some pretty severe stage fright, which was weird because I'd been acting for quite some time. But the minute I met Maria, I can remember in the rehearsal room, I just exhaled, and I remember thinking, she is going to be my friend for the rest of my life. And I think I can remember, Maria, we left the theater and we were walking in, what's Park Slope. We were walking in Park Slope, And I remember us talking about this, like, I think we only hear about it when it comes to romantic relationships, about just knowing, like, I know you're my person. And you are the only human being I've ever felt that with in my entire life. I was like, I just know she's going to be my friend. And it's almost like we didn't have to have a history. We just started and it went.
Yes.
Maybe as a result of where we both were in our lives. I was recovering from a divorce. Maria was recovering from a divorce, and we were both venturing back into acting professionally in New York City, and it was, I think, really scary. And I don't know, she kind of became my lifeboat, I think, for a long time, and still is to this day, probably.
I remember at our first rehearsal with the director, Lindsay dropped something about her ex-husband, and I thought, oh my God, she's like too young to have an ex-husband, and I have an ex-husband, and I'm too young to have an ex-husband, and I was like, oh my God, we're gonna download about this, like.
That's right. At the gay bar in Hell's Kitchen.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Yes, we had an amazing director who selected the bar, and I think we both walked in and we were like, okay, here we go. Like, let's download about how much we failed in relationships. But acting with Maria, I think, was the most comfortable I've ever been on stage, because I just remember feeling really safe, despite the fact that I was going through some stuff in terms of my own career. I always knew, I was like, this girl's got my back. If I go down in a pile of flames, she's going to help me figure out how to get back on, which she did a million times. So I just remember thinking, like, there's really something very special about her. And we ended up acting together one more time after that.
Yeah.
Right? And then
you quit.
I quit acting.
I wouldn't call it quit.
So
truly,
you refocus your energy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know the acting world at all, but I would think almost have to create a connection though with an actor when you're with them, right? So is that something that, to your point, this one just felt organic while other ones felt more forced? Is that kind of a way of describing it? Or
that's a great way to describe it. Yeah,
I think that's totally fair. I dabbling in directing a little bit now. I really look for, like, people who have chemistry together versus saying, wow, like, their talent is so amazing. To me, it really comes down to who's going to work best together and who seems like they're compatible, because I think that's the most important thing. I did a show after Maria and I did a show, and listen, the actor was amazing. He just starred on Broadway. He was great. We just didn't have that same thing that Maria and I did. So it was not a negative experience by any stretch. It just didn't have that magic.
Which I feel like being somebody in the audience who kind of I don't know how to describe it. Like, you can feel when the actors are like ping-ponging off each other. Like, you can just see it. Like, even in their own, in their own, like, the way they look at each other, sometimes you can tell, like, something went off script, but they're still, like, rolling with it. So I get what you mean with that. Like, if you have somebody that is an equal partner, like, we have conversations with people that were in improv, and it was the same thing with them. Like, they do much better when they already have that click or connection, and it doesn't mean that they have to be friends for years. It just means they have that comfort level. So I kind of get what you mean by that, which that is kind of similar in the corporate America, except for in corporate America, you don't really get to pick and choose. You're all there.
Thrown together.
You have to weed it out. To weed it out to find your bestie. So another question for you. Sorry, Claude. I know that you're guessing. I'm like fascinated by this.
No, please. No, that's why the conversation is.
So a question for you guys, as you were kind of bonding together on this, and you said you kind of felt like this, like, instant connection, knowing that was something that kind of moved you guys into a different direction, maybe from to being like as close as you guys seem to be now. What maintained that connection? Because I would assume it's pretty traditional to, like, have high intensity connections in plays or things you're working on, and then when you move to your next project, just like life, like, you don't always get to keep up in the day-to-day. So what kind of made your two connection want to stay close versus, say, some of your other connections with actors?
Well, in thinking about doing this podcast, I was thinking about some of our moments, Lindsay, and our friendship has been such an interesting lesson for me about how much real life seeps into your art. And Lindsay and I were kind of on the same professional trajectory, and also we were on the same personal trip. And Lindsay, I don't think you'll mind me saying that we were both single for what felt like 100 years in New York City, and we have just a Taylor Swiftian catalog of dating information. I'll call it.
You can save all that. Coming soon.
And yeah, that's right. Well, we have definitely like another show. But it kind of moved along just because we had so much in common in that way.
Okay.
And there was one point in our friendship where we had a standing weekly date to see a movie and then go to drinks afterward. And I was thinking, like, what a luxury to have the time and the freedom to just go and have a movie and a drink every single week. And it just really made our conversations so deep about what was happening personally and also with theater.
I totally agree with that. It just felt like, I think in the theater, because to your point, Jess, you were like, things are so intense, right? That you're forced together and you feel like this is going to be your lifelong person, but then life kind of happens and you drift away and all of those promises sort of go unfulfilled. And I think for us, that just never happened, because I can remember when the show ended feeling, I always felt like kind of a sense of mourning the loss of something that the beauty of theater, I think, is you can never, ever, ever recreate it in exactly the same way that it existed in that time and space. And so there's oftentimes like this feeling of mourning, but for me, it was almost like this terror of thinking, are we going to continue to be friends? And is our relationship going to continue along this trajectory? And like Maria said, it just evolved into this weekly date night, and we were both trying to date in New York City and be artists in New York City, and the struggle that comes with both of those things. Really, she was my life raft for so many years, and sometimes I think misery loves company. So we would show up and we would have these stories that we could tell them to other people who were partnered or in relationships, and they would never believe us.
Understand and feel the because you both were like, I want to get it because I just had something similar happen to me.
Yeah. And not just personally, but professionally, I'm thinking like, this person knows the language I'm speaking, knows the experiences I've had, has had the same training I've had, has gone through the grind, and really, really gets it. I don't have to spend hours explaining a story about going out on an audition or whatever the case may be. So there was just this like beautiful security in having someone who you knew understood,
right,
personally and professionally. And still to this day, and almost 10 years later, Maria's still the person who I'm like, we're both partnered, we both advanced in our careers, and yet I know I can call her and she's going to get what I'm going to say when I'm talking about, auditioning or submitting for festival or whatever the case may be.
So I'm curious, it sounds like you guys can, in the past and even now today, still use each other as kind of sounding boards. How has that evolved? Because Lindsay, it sounds like you're not really doing acting anymore. You're now more on the opposite side. So how has that relationship evolved, and where do you see it going?
I'm curious to know Maria's response to that.
Lindsay, you've been, and you always have been, and you remain like my North Star professionally. She's always 2 steps ahead of theater. She always knows every single thing that's playing on Broadway and who the actors are in it and what auditions are coming up and what teaching jobs are available. And I admire your talent and your energy so much, and your ambition, and just the way you just go after what you want. And at one point, Ben Platt had just started in Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway. And Lindsay was like, you've got to come see this show. You've got to come see it. And I was like, I've never heard of this show. And I was kind of dragging my feet. And she got us tickets and she got me in there to see it. And that night, unfortunately, Ben Platt was off. And you should have seen Lindsay. She just about like stood up and screamed in the theater. Yes. But
oh no.
Not my proudest moment.
she's always been just really a leader in my life, and I think just in the industry as well. But you're such a good person to rely on for that, Lindsay. I cherish you for that and many other things.
Thanks, lady. I mean, I can't tell you how many screenshots of text messages I have from Maria that I will save till my dying day. And I truly, like, Maria, first of all, is one of the most insanely talented people I know. I mean, she's got an absolutely exquisite voice, which I wish she would use more. And she's just incredibly talented when it comes to theater. And for somebody, I feel like life has kind of knocked you back now and again, and you just continue to get back up and pursue what you know you're supposed to be doing here. I saw her in a show last year, and I truly felt like it was, I've never felt that amount of pride in watching someone. But in terms of like our relationship evolving, Maria sadly left and moved to Boston, which was one of the worst days of my life. But, I know. I'm starting a petition. You can sign it.
The campaign starts now. Bring Maria back.
Yes, come on, bring back Maria. But I do also feel like she's going to have this continue to have a really thriving career. And she is the person, one of the only people in my life that we can go 2 months. And I know that this is like a best friend trope through and through, but we can go 2 months without talking and pick up and have a 4-hour conversation. And there's no awkwardness. There's no need for a catch up. There's just this like organic understanding of who we each are as people. So while we don't have those weekly dates anymore, when we can connect, it's better than a million.
Yeah,
of
it's
those
probably
dates
just as intense and just
together.
as close, I'm sure.
It
And I feel like that
is.
best friend
Yeah.
trope is a trope for a reason, right?
Yeah. And Maria, I wanted to hear from you. So what did Lindsay brought you? Because we know you're friends, but at the beginning, what did she bring you?
In the beginning of our friendship?
Like while you were doing the play.
Well, Lindsay, you're such an energetic and beautiful actor. And our director, I think, was trying to get me to act a little bit more like Lindsay. So she was a total role model in our show. But just your talent in general, she's a beautiful actor. And I've always admired all your skill and your talent.
I know.
Yeah. And actually, what I have to say too is, Lindsay, you wrote a play, and we actually read it. And
For those that are listening, she's showing them.
I don't even think.
Oh, I'm showing, yeah, for everybody. I forgot, if people see it, of course, we'll put, on our notes and on our posts. But so it's called Squirrel Screams and Other Dating Sounds. And what is very interesting is that you wrote that script really thinking of Maria and your life together. So how did you,
what was
come
the
to
impetus
decide?
of this, and what brought you to get us to this point?
Okay, so I think that, and Maria, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was born out of one of those like late night commiseration sessions. And I truly don't think the story, this guy in particular, I don't think he made it into the script, but I remember thinking, he's so weird. Like, how many other people are dealing with weird people like this? Do you remember he was the Pilabalist dancer?
What?
What is a polabolus dancer?
So Polabolus is it's like a modern dance company in New York City. It's very, very famous. And he was pretty accomplished, right, Maria? Like he was a pretty accomplished guy. And I can remember Maria went on a few dates with him and I could just see she was like really trying to like him. She was trying so hard. And at one point, again, you have to correct me if I have my information wrong, she was talking about him going in for a kiss or something. And she said, he smelled like his grandmother's sweater or something like that.
Some mothballs.
Mothballs! Yes, actually, I think that was it. And I just remember thinking, like, somebody has to write these stories down because nobody would believe that these experiences are actually happening to people. And, like, this was now 10 years ago, but still, like, there are people who've read the play and gone, I don't believe that guy exists. And I want to be like, well, let me pull up his picture and tell you the story of the date.
So for the audience, actually, the book is about Kate and Bridget. That every chapter is, Kate or Bridget that are actually meeting a guy on a date in a bar. And then, well, I'm not going to say the end. So you're telling me that all those different dates are real?
Not one of them's made up. Or elements are, but not fully. Is that it?
Some elements. Not,
because that's scary.
Yeah.
Totally based on a true story. Like
based
the whole thing.
on a true story. Yeah. There's no, they all are.
Okay, that is scary.
Like now I have to reread it because I just assumed there was some liberties taken.
There, in terms of like the crafting of some of the scenes in order to get the story to fit, but like the actual quirk that you would nail down for each guy, like if you were to describe the guy with that one specific quirk, the weird element to him was always based in truth. But some of the scenes had to be manipulated a little bit just to fit the dramatic structure of the piece. But absolutely 100% they're true. And the two characters, I mean, am I okay to say that, Maria? Like they really, Bridgie and Kate are like exaggerations of you and me.
Which is so funny because when Maria first came, online, I asked her, okay, Maria, so who are you, Kate or Bridget?
I don't know if they want to admit that. I'm sure people who know you can figure it out. But
yeah.
Yeah. Extreme, like definitely to the extreme. But I remember when, so we did 10 minutes. The beginning of this play was actually just the last scene. So when this show went up initially at the same theater that we met at, it was just the ending without any of the guys. And I can remember, and I think this is right, the director had us both read
each part.
We both read both parts a couple of times. Yeah, because I'm definitely more Bridgie, I think, but like there's a lot of Kate that I think rings true for me too. And I don't know, would you say the same, Maria?
I would, yeah. It's
I mean, that kind of makes sense, though, because it sounds like you two, while you both have distinct personalities, there's a lot of similarities as well that kind of bond you two. So it would make sense in your personas of the individuals, you're going to like highlight the similarities as well as the distinct differences.
Yeah.
That's a great point. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
That's cool, though. That's so neat. I have like...
Their friendship. Lindsay write a play about their friendship.
I didn't realize that you acted it, though. You did do this live and performed it to other people. Yeah. How was that experience? Because it's like you're reliving your own life in a way.
That's my favorite theater experience of my life.
Yeah.
Me too. I too suffer from stage fright, and going on stage with Lindsay, like we almost knew that if we forgot our lines, we would just start talking and everything would be fine. Because it was that blurry about who we were and who these characters were. Yeah. And Lindsay is a hilarious person and writer, and to get on stage and we're doing these lines that she's written that were drawn from our own experiences, and to hear the audience laughing at hysterically, so we would have to pause and then clapping and going, and you could hear people, it dawning on them, that's happened to me, and I know this person that just to be in that situation and hear the work that Lindsay did resonate with like myself and everyone in the audience, it was the most energetic, kind of synergetic theater experience of my life. It was so fun.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah, that has to be
incredible.
magic. Like to your
it's
point,
so
how do you recreate that high?
That's the problem.
Play, Lindsay. Get Maria back.
I don't think you can. I mean, I agree. That was the single best acting experience of my life. There was just something so like I'm redundant, but it was really, really magical. It was terrifying. And I remember at the end going, okay, I can be done now. Like I truly don't think I want to keep acting anymore. I think it's causing me more anxiety. I think that I've found my wheelhouse in writing. I want to pursue that. So it was such a beautiful thing to have be that final moment of my
to be
pursuit
like,
of acting.
with somebody that you felt so close and you wrote it. That's amazing.
Yeah. You went to a new chapter in your life with a beautiful gift of your friendship.
Absolutely.
Before we do pivot to you moving to that news section, though, I am curious because now you both have brought up like severe stage fright, but your professions are being on stage. So help me understand that. How do you, like, is this you are those types of personalities that you're trying to move past your fears? How does one, like, that's such an interesting dichotomy of wanting to be an actor, but
That's such a great question. I'm not even sure I have an answer at this moment,
but you're
except to say that like once you get for me, once I get out there, everything kind of disappears and you get on the ride and then it's like such a high. But yeah, so
for each show you still have that little bit of like
get there. Okay. And did you guys had a little rituals before going on stage?
What do you do if you do get nervous? What's that like thing that helps calm you down?
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Claude just hit the nail on the head. That's when I knew that it was going to be trouble for me. Up until that point, I could figure out how to temper my nerves. But when we did Squirrel Screams as that end scene, I did have to take a shot before going on stage. That was literally, and that's when I thought, this is a slippery slope. This is not healthy, not okay. Yeah. Because I really, it was almost like having a panic attack. And I'd been acting since I was 19. So it just came up very, very suddenly. And it just got to the point where I couldn't get on the ride. I felt like I didn't have a seatbelt. And it wasn't fun anymore because I was just constantly worried about dropping a line. But the kind of strange thing is, as a professor, like you were saying, Jess, like I'm presenting in front of a classroom every single day.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I have no anxiety. I have that excitement. I have that, like, I'm excited to try and get them engaged and tell the story of what I'm trying to teach them. And I have zero anxiety, but put me on a stage, turn the lights out and have an audience, and I'm going to sweat through my shirt and I'm going to need some whiskey to get through it.
So
is Squirrel Screams on YouTube?
No, it's not.
Yeah, is there a place they could watch it? Like, did anyone film when you guys were?
I
kind of want to see it. Can you do another showing?
I would love that.
Let's do it, Lindsay. Let's do it.
That's the only time I would come back into acting if Maria and I were going to do this again. It's not, because it was an Actors Equity production. They have really, really strict rules about disseminating recordings. So
maybe that can be a podcast.
Yeah.
But it's true, an episode of the podcast. It's going to be
where you just read it? That would be actually really cool.
Or act that would be so cool.
Published, but I feel like we could find a workaround to that. I'd be game. Maria, would you be game?
Sure, yeah.
We have a couple of good male actors. 2 male actors played all of those roles too, so it's hard.
Wow!
It's challenging to find somebody who can flex that
wear
kind
multiple
of acting.
hats.
Yeah,
in multiple
Well, check about check about the legality of it, and then maybe that can be one of the episodes.
That'd be fun.
So wait, how many plays have you written, Lindsay? Because this isn't your only one, right?
No.
You've done multiple, right?
Okay. I'm on 4. I just got a small grant to do a play based in Queens that is centered around one of my other best friends, who's an almost 90-year-old woman named Dorothy. So that's what I'm working on right now. But I have 3.
Oh my God, you're gonna have to come back on and do that one too.
Right?
That's amazing. Yeah, wait, where did you meet this person? Is this is a relative?
I met her right before the pandemic. She lived in my previous building in Sunnyside, Queens, and I must have met her in November of 2019, and I was leaving right before. And she would hold court down in the lobby of the building, and every time I would leave, she would tell me if I was dressed properly or not. And I thought, who is this woman? And she was sitting there. She was waiting for Meals on Wheels, and we struck up a conversation. And I thought, man, I know she could be my grandmother, but I really she's very feisty. She was born in East New York. She was an orphan. She lived in an orphanage up until she was 18. She married you want to talk about having someone on a podcast. This woman is really she's lived. She married kind of a slime bag artist who cheated on her. So her very first plane ride, she went to Tijuana and got a quickie divorce. She went back to her apartment in Woodside. Hand to God, she packed a suitcase. She packed her ironing board. She got on the Q60 and she moved to Sunnyside, and she's not left. So she's been living in this building for 50 years. And one day I thought, you know what?
Why the ironing board?
I have no idea. That ironing board is still in the corner. Still in the corner of her apartment.
Because it's probably a sign of freedom for her.
That is Dorothy's liberation item.
Oh my God.
So we just became friends. At one point, I felt really bad for her. I thought, oh, she's getting Meals on Wheels. So I was making coffee every day, and I thought, I'm just going to make her a coffee. So I took her a coffee over and I just set it by her door. When I came back home that night, there was a clean coffee cup. And I thought, okay, well,
drink it.
You've started something. So every morning I'd have to bring Dorothy coffee over to her apartment. And we've just become, she's really a fantastic human. So I got her permission to write a play about her life, and the Queens Council for the Arts gave me a small grant. And so I'm going to try and get that up in the fall.
Oh, I'm so excited for this.
That's fantastic.
I mean, that story, right? You have no choice but to write a play about it.
I don't. She's given me no choice.
She really has. But how kismet that you met her, because there's no way she would write that story. Because if you're living the life, you're just whatever, this is my life.
Well, that's exactly it. I said, Dorothy, she goes by Dorothy Dolly is her name. So I call her Dolly sometimes. I said, Dolly, are you okay if I write this play? And she goes, sure, what do I care? And I thought, well, there you go.
For the younger generation that actually starts in your field, so artists and acting, what would you say, the importance of having that connection with someone?
The first thing that came to mind when you asked that question is competition is so synonymous with theater. And I think particularly amongst women, we can be so nasty to each other. And I can remember going to auditions and looking at a line of women down the hallway going, that's who I'm fighting against to get this role. And in actuality, if you flip the script on that and you're like, no, we're all in this together. And this is something that is super stressful, super uncomfortable, putting your life on the line, kind of, that's a little dramatic, but
somewhat, in some cases it could be, right?
Yeah, you're putting yourself out there and you're being really vulnerable. And if we can I would love it if this new generation of artists in particular could understand that this idea of getting past competition and understanding that this cliched phrase like comparison is the thief of joy. So if we can uplift each other, if this new generation of especially female artists can uplift and support each other as opposed to seeing each other as the enemy, I think that's one of the things that immediately attracted me to Maria. Was I was like, I just don't feel like I feel like we're in this together, and it's not a who's better or who's this. It's like we're a collaborative team. And I guess that sort of maybe holds true with friendships as well. Like everybody brings different things to the table. So we don't have to, if we can get past this idea that we're in competition with each other and be there to support as colleagues and peers and artists or work besties, that's the only way forward, I think.
That is an interesting one. I wonder if because in your industry, you're right, it is so synonymous with competition based off of like the fact you have to audition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's even way more intense than just interviewing, because I don't normally walk in and see who I'm up against in my interview.
Yeah.
And I usually get like a very thorough job portfolio or description of it, and you can kind of get right away whether you're going to hit it or not. And in fairness, kind of what you were talking about before, like I'm interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing me for the feeling and the like understanding of how we're going to work together. But you guys sometimes when you're doing your auditions don't even see or know the other people that are going to get the roles, so you don't know if you're going to have that instant bonding connection with these other people either. So that has to be really tough. Yeah, it's organically happening.
Yeah.
How do you facilitate that with others?
Yeah.
You need to start like an artist bestie coalition or something.
I've been out of it so long, but I'd be curious, like Maria just did this show. I'd be curious what you felt like when you walked into was it an open call? Was it a private audition? Like, I don't know.
It was an open call. All of those same feelings came right back of like, these are my enemies and, I have to beat out these people. And that sounds extreme and it is a little bit, but in that moment, to Lindsay's point, that's how it feels. But of course, then after you get cast, then you get to know everyone. And of course, everyone's wonderful. And those were all just feelings that aren't facts.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the false narrative. You go in assuming that that's what's going to happen because we're human. We're always going to assume the worst.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
That's interesting, though. Like, to that point, though, how do we flip the script that you're just going to assume everybody's the best? Does that start with how the casting calls go, or does it start with whoever the director? Like,
it starts a little bit with how the audition is run, a little bit.
Yeah. But just being kind, just being kind to each other.
Well, think about that, Lindsay, when you start doing.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Come on.
But and that's where we can say also for the younger generation not to do that, right? That there's room for everybody. There's kindness. If there's no room, there's still support. There's kindness. So how do we work together?
Showcasing our examples of partnerships and friendships helps to for them to replicate it too, right? Because like we weren't raised to do this. We were raised the opposite way. We weren't raised to like. Claude, you and I would sit there and make sure we were sending emails at the same time so no one looked better than the other.
At the same time.
That was not how I was raised. It was like you send it first and you show everyone else up. Like, so I think the fact that we've overcome that, and it sounds like you two are both, supporting each other and figuring out like when you were going through different auditions or writing plays, like you're already helping each other. That's a great example to this younger generation to like start it now. Don't wait. Don't like let fate find your soulmate. Just start talking to people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
All right.
Love it.
Any parting
or anything you guys want to share
words?
that we want to make sure we put on our podcast links for them to find you or to follow you on anything?
I need to be better about being on social media, but I could definitely share my social media. I'd love to share. Maria, do we have that? I think we have one single picture of the two of us on stage together at the end?
That would be amazing.
I don't know. I'd love to share
Yes,
that.
I would
We
love
want it.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
I'm not going to
yeah.
promise that the quality
That's
is
fine.
amazing, but I think it's pretty representative of.
That's
Oh no, that's awesome.
Okay.
Oh,
And of
perfect.
course, yeah,
Perfect.
and we'll put, the cover of the book on social
you.
as well. And
Oh, thank you guys. This has been so much fun.
So much fun.
Wow, that was pretty interesting.
it was
I feel like that was one of our most lighthearted and fun episodes. It was just so cool to talk to
a new industry.
a new industry, learn new things.
Yeah.
It just felt that comedy and being kind was such an important part of their beings, both as a relationship and as they evolve in their communities.
And especially I think that, actors, there's this competition, right? Like you're going to audition and it's you or it's the other.
Yeah.
But yet they were able to navigate that and to be able to tell a friend and to support each other. And I think that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I feel like this is one of the last, well, there's a lot of industries that probably competition really is a pinnacle element of it, but this is probably one of the ones where it's the most prevalent, because to your point, you walk in a room and you look around at literally your competition. Like if I go, not that I'm interviewing, but if I was to go for an interview, I don't see the people I'm interviewing against.
Yep.
They physically are in front of them if it's an open call, which we learned
Exactly.
about. I
We
didn't know
learned,
the difference between closed and open call, so we're learning stuff too. But I find that so fascinating. And then Lindsay's explanation of like, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
They could, in essence, find ways to get to know those other people in the room, talk to those other people, because you will wind up being in many auditions with them again and again. And the more people support each other, the more you might reap the benefits of it longer term.
And more of a positivity.
Yeah.
Right? Like it doesn't have like going to the slaughterhouse, right? Yeah.
I don't know where you're going with this.
Well, because, you're like over there and there's competition, it's not as lighthearted.
Right.
But so you're going, it's not in as much as a positive way. But there you have the support, those friends, not friends, but you can be friendly.
I think she was
and
trying
respectful.
to say, yeah, that even if you don't become friends,
explaining again?
Well, no, Lindsay's what she was saying. She was making it sound like you would be respectful to each other and more of an acquaintance, not necessarily. You're not doing it to become best friends, but it could happen.
Which happened to Maria and Lindsay.
Right.
What I think is very interesting also is that Lindsay actually wrote a book from that friendship with Maria.
I know.
What are you going to do for me for our friendship?
Sorry, Claude. Do you want me to go write you a book?
I got the PowerPoint.
I don't know. I just mentioned earlier in the episode that we're going to become the new Golden Girls. So if you would like, I could.
What?
I could help us find our new house to live together. How about
that? Yeah. What did you say earlier? You would bring me what?
Oh, yes. I said, hey, when you get to that age, I can sit there while you get your Meals on Wheels. Just like Lindsay met a new friend doing the same thing.
But no, again, it was great to learn from a new industry,
and understanding how this work besties can really be established across anything. I think is just so cool. And then the awesome part about this one is we have the potential for Lindsay and Marie to come back and do an extended cut version of their play, The Squirrel Screams and Other Dating Sounds. We look forward to that. That'll be awesome.
Yes, that will be great. And it will be, to actually see them in action and really relive their friendship. We'll put also the name of the book
of the play
in the notes. It's available for purchase. Yeah. It's cute and funny.
I feel like sadly I related to some of the dates too.
Thank God I didn't.
Long time ago, but sadly still reigns true.
But yeah, so it's Squirrel Screams and Other Dating Sounds by Lindsay Tymington.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this. And as we like to say all the time,
To all the work besties out there, keep supporting each other.
We did it!